beforehand to do all of this. You know, I could work at my funeral thing, look at it a month later and make some improvements and stuff like that. And it's a much more relaxed way of doing things. Well, then there was gratitude for choices that I made at certain crossroads moments in my life. Moments in my life when I said, yes, Lord. And I realized it was so vivid for me by His grace alone. To remain faithful to my wife. You know, I travel a lot. Most of my life for the last, 25 years, I've been traveling at least 4 months a year, and sometimes up to 6-7 months a year. And so that means that I have more than enough temptations as I travel. But there is also the matter of being faithful to my wife inside my head. And I knew by the grace of God I had remained faithful to my wife, not only in the visible realm, but also in here. And it was such a sense of, I don't know what it did for me, but you know, to know I'm going to say goodbye to my wife, maybe forever for this earthly life, and look her in her eyes, and know I can say to her, you have been the only woman in my life. I could say that to her. I can still say it to her. It's such a blessing to be able to say that. You know what it does to your own inner sense of integrity? If you know by the grace of God, your entire life you've really, also in your head, been faithful to your own wife. I was so happy for this. I said, Lord, this is grace. This is grace. Nothing else. Because I tell you, there were times when I was right on that very thin line. But the Lord in His mercy kept me. To father our children relationally. I didn't know much about how to be a father. My own father was an alcoholic. And he was drunk every day. So I didn't have much modeling on how to be a father. I didn't know how to do it. And so after we started getting kids, I was quite uncomfortable with them. As a matter of fact, in the beginning I thought they were rather a big nuisance because they interfered. You know, I want to be alone with my wife, and then you have these kids getting in the way all the time. And so the Lord really had to change my heart attitude. I didn't have, to tell you the truth, I didn't have space in my heart for them. There were such nuisances that I wasn't really happy with them. They were in a way, if I have to say it very hard way, they were the byproduct of my relationship with my wife, but they weren't really that important to me. Until the Lord got a hold of me and He said, now, son, there's some stuff we have to deal with here. This is not the way things are supposed to go. And I'll never forget how the Lord, one by one, He brought me into crisis situations where He just had to break my heart and stretch the thing so that one more child can get in. I wasn't that spiritual, you notice that. I was a very slow learner. I'm not one of those people who are like naturally nice. I don't have that. I never had it. My wife, when we got married, soon after we got married, she said to me, you are a bull in a china shop. That's what you know about relationships. I couldn't argue with her because it was the truth. So here I had to learn how do you relate to these noisy things, and how do you really love them? How do you make space for them in your life in a way that convinces them that I love them? It was a very scary thing for me to learn how to do this. Well, I can't tell you that story, that's another story. But the Lord did. Step by step, He changed me and taught me how to build relationships with our children. We had some really fun times together as the Lord was teaching us this. Well, and then the Lord called me to work full-time in HCF. That was when I was working at this mission hospital. You see, I worked there and really enjoyed it. I would have stayed there easily for the rest of my life. And I had it all planned out already. You know how I was going to serve the Lord. I had already started the diabetes clinic there at the hospital. I was going to do research on diabetes because as the population of people we were serving were westernizing, the incidence of diabetes grew. So that was before research had been done about it. And as a matter of fact, another guy in South Africa did exactly the same research that I wanted to do 4 years after I became a full-time worker. So, but the Lord called me out of my medical work to work in HCF. And I'll never forget the first month that I was in HCF. You know, in HCF we don't get salaries. And I was used to get quite a good salary working as a doctor. And the first month we got about 5%, you know, because now we had to live from gifts. So we got 5% of what we used to get when I was working as a doctor. And you know what? I didn't have the courage to tithe that 5%. I thought, good heavens, if I take 5% off from this, 10% from the 5% off, I really have, this is far too little. But I felt so guilty. After a month, I couldn't hold it anymore. I said, Lord, please forgive me. Here's your 10%. And from that time, I thought, better give the 10% straight away before the temptation gets me. And then about 25 years ago, the Lord called us to move into another culture, move to the Netherlands. And we did when He called us. And it was such I was thinking, Lord, thank you that you gave me the grace to do this. I remember the doctor that we saw in one country that we visited. I won't say which country. And we had received the name of this doctor. They told us, you must meet this guy. He's really on fire for the Lord, and you must go and talk to him. He's a very good contact person. He'll help you to start something for HCF there. So we came to the city, and we found the guy's home, but no answer. And we didn't know what to do, and we went to the hospital, and we met a Christian nurse there, and we told her, you know what, we were phoning this guy, but no answer, man. Oh, but don't you know, she said. No, what do you mean? Well, he's in hospital, he's terminal with cancer. You can actually go and visit him. He's just a few wards up here from here. So we went to visit this brother, and he was so depressed. And so we were kind of didn't know what to do. He's a Christian. He's very active for the Lord, but so depressed. And so we said to him, brother, is there something we can pray about with you? And he said to us, look, when I qualified, the Lord called me to go to the mission field. But I said to the Lord, look, Lord, there's enough work in my own country. So I'm going to make a deal with you. I'm going to work for you in my own country till I'm 60. And then I'll retire. And then when I retire, I'll go and work as a missionary for you. And then he started to weep. And he wept. I won't forget those weeping. And then he said, you know, when he kind of had his voice back again, I'm 59 now. I will not make 60. The one thing I regret is I did not say yes when the Lord said go. So we prayed with him and we said, look, you know, the Lord can forgive you. And the Lord did. And the Lord comforted him. But he knew and we knew that life of good was not God's best. And the Lord had helped me to train trainers who are training others to train others. I was very happy for that. So in one way I said, you know what, Lord, it's okay for me to die. Because I've been working for you, I've trained trainers, they are training others who are training others. You've allowed me to start a multiplying ministry. I'm so happy, thank you very much. Our training workbooks are being used in more than 60 countries. Our trainers are traveling all over the world training people. Wonderful, thank you very much. I can honestly say, Lord, my life has been worthwhile. So I would put it this way, the general direction was okay, but the details many times not. You know, with me being a bull in a china shop, the details didn't always go that well. But the big lines, by the grace of God, the main lines of my life were lines of obedience. And I was so grateful. I can't tell you how grateful. And I just thank the Lord for His forgiveness and mercy. Those times when I did hurt people or was disobedient to Him, He forgave me. Now, we teach people in our seminar that they should aim for 6 goals when they deal with dying people. If they have losses, you help them to work through the losses. You know, they lose their job, they lose their mobility, they lose their future perspective, they lose all kinds of things. And if you lose something, it's always connected to grief. So you grieve. And so you need to help people to go through all those grief processes. They become isolated because you die alone. Nobody dies for you except the Lord that did that 2,000 years ago. But in this now, you must die your own death. You can't get a substitute. And the fact that you have to die your own death means that there's a certain isolation. The other people can't go that road because they're not going, they're not you. And that puts you in a place of isolation. Fear, and people need to be delivered from fear. And the Lord had delivered me from my fear through the seminar and through that incident with the missionaries in Zimbabwe. And the guilt and the shame, well, I took 3 days to confess everything. And from that time, I was okay. It was such a blessing. Somebody said there's a direct link between being freshly cleansed by the blood and the joy of the Lord. You know, freshly cleansed by the blood and the joy of the Lord. You can't have the joy of the Lord if you haven't been freshly cleansed. The emotional struggles, because people go through all kinds of emotional struggles, and you need to help them work through those emotions. And the pain, face the pain, because there's the emotional and spiritual aspect of pain also that people need to deal with. Well, what really helped me to have shalom in the face of my own death? Now, let me just go one step back here. In dealing with this, Well, I told you that I was so ready to meet the Lord, okay? And then they gave me such strong pre-medication, I didn't even notice them taking me to the operating room. And I was now expecting that my next conscious experience was going to be looking straight in those eyes of Jesus. That was what I was expecting. So 2 days later, I realized I wasn't there because of the pain I had in my chest and my back. The pain woke me up. And I realized, oh no, I'm alive. And I became so depressed. I didn't want to speak to anybody. It took me 2 days to accept the fact that I was alive. So after 2 days, I said, okay, Lord, I surrender. I accept the fact that I'm alive, and I accept that you think it's better for me to be alive. And I accept the responsibility to live. I accept that responsibility. There were several things that made it for me difficult. Why I really preferred to go to the Lord. 2 things really. Number 1 is this: the mess this world is in. Okay? It troubles me. It's a burden that I carry. The mess this world is in, I don't like it. Sometimes my kids say to me, can't you smile? You always look so serious, they say to me. Well, I say to them, how can I smile if the world is in such a mess? It gets me. It's for me something that makes it an uncomfortable thing to be alive. And I thought, if I'm with Jesus, I don't have that burden anymore. What a relief it will be, having carried it for most of my life, this burden for a broken world. Oh, what a blessing it's going to be when I'm with the Lord and I don't have to carry that. But it's like it gnaws at me. And I know the Lord told me it's a burden that He wants me to carry. He wants me to have a heart that is touched by the brokenness of this world. And the second thing why I didn't want to live is the fact that my hands, as a doctor, my hands are covered with blood. The blood of my profession, the blood that we doctors are spilling every day, day after day after day, through the abortions that we are performing all over the world. Sometimes when I think of this, how my hands are looking, I am almost too ashamed to pray. Lord, we who are supposed to be protectors of life, we're supposed to be blessers, our hands are full of blood. How can we still talk to you? This troubles me. I can't accept it. I can't accept it that we doctors do this. What does it do to you? What does it do to you? Does it grip you? It would have been better for me to be dead. And then I said, okay, Lord, you want me to be alive? All right. You better have a good reason. Because I'm not interested in living an empty life. So I must tell you that by now you notice I'm brutally honest with the Lord. No nonsense in our dealings with one another. I don't try to be nice to the Lord, okay? He's much nicer to me than I am to him, I must confess. And it took more than a year for me to know why the Lord had prolonged my life here on earth. Now I know. So I said, okay, good reason. I am very happy. It's okay. I can accept that. Thank you. I got some more work to do. I'll do it. Thank you very much. I'll try to finish it as quickly as possible because I'm not really interested in staying too long on this planet. So, what helped me to have shalom in the face of death? Was it my Christian attitudes that the Lord by His grace had worked into my life? Was it my Christian life and behavior? Yes, it helped. I told you, it helped me because I knew I had less regrets than I would have had otherwise if I was living in disobedience. Was it Christian presence, my friends who tried to comfort me? Of course, you know, some of them, they come to visit me. Now they heard this guy has got cancer, is serious stuff and all. So they come there and they cry so much, I have to comfort them. But even so, I thought, you know what? They came because they want to bless me, even though they cry so much.